Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. All right, my friends, welcome to a historical romance rec video. Now, this one may feel repetitive for my long-term fans or viewers, thanks guys, for my long-term viewers and friends here, because this video is my holy grail of historical romances. And I had seen this when I was looking up video ideas to make, and I'd seen it done with a few other books. Like I'd seen it done with fantasy romance someone was doing, and I was like, ooh, I would like to do that with historical, because I haven't talked about historical romance too much lately. You know, I have a goal to read more historical romance this year, and I'll be honest, outside of my book club books, I haven't gotten to that many. It's just facts, right? It's just facts, and that's okay. I'm enjoying a lot of the other books I'm reading too. But historical romance will always be one of my very first loves in the romance genre. And, you know, I wanted to find an excuse to talk about them. And even doing a video about like the last 10 that I read or something. I've barely read 10 this year as it is, which I know is just horrible. Like Big Sis, the Crystal's Bookish Life over there, she has been going through a historical romance phase, and I'm so jealous of it because I just can't force it, you know. But right now I'm reading one of our book club picks, which if you don't know, I do have a historical romance book club with Crystal, and it is currently a quarterly book club that we do. And we have our summer session coming up. I think it's the second to the last Wednesday. So is it next Wednesday already? I'm actually not sure, but I'll put it up here. We already have the date picked, but it's going to be on a Wednesday evening. And we're talking about Beverly Jenkins, which is called A Chance at Love. That's the one I'm reading right now. And then there is The Beast of Clan Kincaid, which I can't remember the author's name for that one. But those are the two books we'll be talking about. So if you've read either of those or you want to read those, you definitely still have time. They're both available on audiobook, which is part of the reason why I picked those ones. I like there to be audiobook option if possible. Or if you've read one or the other, or you just want to know if you should read them, you'll be able to come and watch. That'll be hosted on my channel for sure. But anyway, like I said, I want to talk about historicals. And I want to talk about my favorite historicals because you know what? I get new viewers all the time. People stumble across historical romance videos all the time. Some of my very first videos still get watches today, which is just insane to me because I'm embarrassed by those videos a little bit. Not for how I look or whatever, but ask anyone who's been making content for longer than 6 months and you'll know that you grow and change so much. And at this point, we're looking at 8 years in the past, and I was just so different in a lot of ways, right? I went from early 20s to early 30s on YouTube, and it's just crazy. Not what I expected at all. But I wanted to make a historical romance video because I feel like there are all different types of discussions we have had and will have about historical romance. It does go through phases, and currently it is in a phase where there is less being put out, at least in the traditional sense, right? And what I am very happy to say is that about half, let me count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, I think 4 of the 6 I'm going to talk to you about were indie published. 5 if we talk about an indie press, which means like there was still a kind of a publisher helping with it, but it was through like an indie aspect of it. And so it is definitely not the death of historical romance, like people like to say for dramatic effect, but people do go through phases, right? And I'm in a phase where it's just hard to catch my attention, and that's not just historical romance that's done that. It's fantasy romance, it's paranormal romance. I've really firmly been in contemporary and dark romance moods lately. That's just where I've been sitting, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it does make me long for stories like this. And I think part of it is it's been hard for me to find stories like this these days. A lot of the ones we're going to talk about, these books all came out I mean, like 5 or more years ago, besides 2 of them. And so there's just something about how historical romances were written that I'm not getting, right? But on the plus side, I have literal hundreds in my apartment that are from those bygone times, and why aren't I reading those and finding those, right? I also talked with friends that, you know, just in the way that books from the early 2000s suddenly get picked up and loved and are getting made into things, which I'm not saying I need the historicals to be made into things. Let's be honest. Very few of us who are true fans of the Bridgerton books still feel like we like the Bridgerton show. We may still enjoy it, but, you know, there was rumors at one time that the Wallflower books will be getting made into a series. Stacey Reed's books, some of hers have been bought for a series. There was, yeah, Lisa Kleypas ones, there was Tessa Dare ones, and nothing has come of those, right? Would that get more attention to historical? Maybe. But as it is, I still have some holy grails of historical ones that I've reread multiple times and have great love of them. And I want to share them with you today. So I do have 10. For the most part, yeah, them being the holy grail, you could say they're my top 10. But there definitely are more that still hit in my favorites. But I just went with 10. And so once I reached 10, I just stopped grabbing for books. Even though I could. Like I said, I have more than 10 that I consider fully worthy of you. But there are some that I think will show up on any self-respecting historical romance lover's list. Not that you're unself-respecting if they're not. But for sure, there's a few who will show up. And if not these exact books, these authors do. Okay? Because it is funny. I think with some historicals, there's almost that, like, it's a truth universally acknowledged that if you love historical romance, you probably love these. And then there may be some that surprise you, because there's some that surprise me. But anyway, that's enough rambling. You know how it goes. We're 7 minutes in already, and my throat is still my throat's not sore, but my voice is on the edge of going. And so all this time I'm spent rambling, not talking about the books, we're risking it. So let's go in. Now, these ones aren't in particular order. I'm literally going to grab them off the stack. I'm going to try not to go in full depth of these ones. I want this video to, if I can, sit around 30 minutes so that it is digestible for people. But I have an entire playlist that is historical romances. So if there's any of these you want to hear me talk about more, I can guarantee I have in one of those videos. So I'll make sure to link that playlist up there. But of course, as we go, I'd love to hear how many of these you agree with me on. Like, for real, give me like an out of 10 down below as you watch this. But also give me some of yours. I would love to know what some of your holy grails are, because maybe I want to check them out. And maybe, again, they're in my like next circle out. I just really wanted to keep this as 10 for brevity purposes. Okay? All right. So let's just start pulling from the stack. I literally will give you the tropes and just a few things that make it on my holy grail list for me. And then we'll move along, okay? We're doing it. I'm doing it. So we have, again, The Magic by Lisa Kleypas. I also didn't double up on authors, by the way, were books, but a few of these authors, particularly Lisa Kleypas, has multiple books that would be in my like top books ever, but I just picked one from each author. So again, The Magic is a prequel or a 0.5, as it were, to the Wallflower series by her. I read it after I'd read the Wallflower series already, but this is a second chance romance. It's a class difference, for sure in the beginning anyway, about Aline Marsden, who is the sister to Marcus, who we see in the Wallflower series. And she was in love with a stable boy when she was young. And we do start the book in the past. We start it there. And they're swiftly falling in love with one another. And then Aline's father finds out. And he is sent away. And she pretends not to love him so that he will go without a fight and without possibly getting arrested and all these things that her father threatens to do. And it's very heartbreaking for her. But then John comes back years later. John McKenna comes back, and now he has become a very wealthy man in America, and he's back with one of his business partners to basically rub it in Aline's face because, again, she lied to him and said she didn't love him. And now he's back, and he wants to conquer her and make her his, but then leave her. That's what he thinks he's going to do anyway. And I love this one. I just adore these two. I cry bloody tears of pain every time I reread it because it's just so sad the time that they lost together and her horrible father who split them apart. But it's also beautiful because this is one where I really dislike the heroine right to the edge of the book. And every time, and I've reread this book, I am not exaggerating. I've read this book about 10 times, okay? And every time I'm like, man, why do I like Aline? Why do I like Aline? She is driving me nuts. And then the turn happens and you see how broken this woman was and the facade she's put up. And when John finally fully sees her stripped down who she is, he realizes a lot about that too. And he has this type of righteous anger that's almost, well, it's heartbreaking and it's beautiful. There is also a second tier romance in this book that I know throws a lot of people off, but I find it very touching, as I've said. And this is about John's friend who comes with him, his business partner who comes with him, and he has an alcohol problem and he's a bit of a wastrel, and he actually falls for Aline's younger sister, and he's forced to actually clean up his act to be with her. And we get very few scenes with the two of them, but I love that romance as well. All right, then Never Seduce a Scot by Maya Banks. This one is pretty quick to talk about. So this one is a marriage of convenience, two enemy families needing to come together. This is the Armstrong and the Montgomery series, or the Montgomerys and the Armstrong, sorry. And in this we have Eveline. Yeah, I guess the names are pretty similar here. Eveline, who is deaf. She went deaf as a young girl, and she has kind of let her people think that she is dim-witted or slow because she was ill and it made her deaf, and so they think that it, like, the fever demented her brain or something. But really, she kind of played along with it because she was supposed to have to marry this pig of a man, and she actually got sick running away from the prospect of marrying this guy. And so she, being sick and dim-witted, again, these are words that are used in the book, this is a medieval time one, and she just went with it because she was like, it's fine, I'll just get to live with my family, it'll be great. But now the Montgomerys and the Armstrongs are fighting horribly, and I think it's the king, it's the prince, it's a duke, I can't remember who tells them they have to do it, King Alexander II, yes. And he needs the Montgomerys and the Armstrongs to get along. And so he demands that there be a marriage contract. And the Montgomerys are told that they need to marry, like, Graham, who is the oldest, needs to marry Eveline. Now, he has heard that his enemy's daughter is dim-witted. And he is honestly, not only is he pissed he's having to marry an enemy, but he's also, like, feeling really defeated in a way because he's like, not only am I having to marry an enemy, which, you know, he doesn't want to do, but he's also would never take advantage of a dim-witted girl, slow, whatever they're calling her in here, touched. I think they call her touched is what they say. So he's like, I'm basically being not only married off to my enemy, but I'm going to be a eunuch for my whole life. Because he's like, I'm not going to have a sexual relationship with my wife who they say has the mind of a child. I mean, of course, that seems like the bare minimum of what men do. But again, medieval times, nobody would have looked twice at him if he had done that. Anyway, but when he meets her, not only is she the most beautiful woman he's ever seen, but Eveline lets him know that she can understand him by reading his lips. And also, he has one of the deepest timbre of voices she's ever seen, and she can actually feel when he speaks, which gets her very excited. But she lets him know that she can read his lips. And so now it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm actually marrying this beautiful, smart, though silent wife, which I don't even mean more than that by it. But So there is still going to be a lot of troubles for them because they may end up on the same page and be like, we're going to have each other's backs with this, but she's having to move into his fortress or his, keep as an enemy's daughter, even if she's the laird's wife. So there's going to be a lot of struggles for her. But I love this book because Eveline is such a kind person, and I love how clever she was. And granted, for the time she lived in, she used the tools she had, which was, faking a disability, which I know doesn't sound great in our times now, but if you were going to be forced to marry a raping a-hole, maybe you would try that too. Again, not all of these are going to be perfectly PC, but one of the things that makes me love this is how Graham treats her and sees her as a treasure. And even before he knows that he can have a romantic relationship with her, he is planning to love and care for his enemy's daughter, as he would hope someone would treat his own sister. So I love that book. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, it's great. All right, then we have Lord of Shadows by Elizabeth Hoyt. This is one that I really do want to reread some of the Maiden Lane books, because something that's fun about this one too is the time period. These ones are actually Georgian, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I believe these ones are Georgian, which just isn't when a lot of historical romances take place. If you know this, they take place in the Regency or the Victorian era is when the vast amount of them take place. But this one is basically, I always want to say Victorian, Georgian Batman. There is what is called the Ghost of St. Giles, who's a protector, a judge, a fugitive who protects the poor and the needy in this certain area of London. And in this story, it's Winter Makepeace. And he is actually a, school, not a principal, but there's this school for wayward children that he protects them, and he is the one, in charge and everything, kind of like the headmaster. And he, let's say this is a charity, right? And he's not doing the best PR for them. And so we have a lady, Isabella Beckenhill, who is a widow, and she is put in charge of helping to up the home's manager and make him more presentable so they can get funds to run this home. And he falls head over heels for her. This is also an older woman romance. She is a widow, and she's just very taken with this broody yet good-looking manager of this home. And it turns out he is also the Ghost of St. Giles, and she comes across him one day when the Ghost of St. Giles gets injured, and she actually rescues him. But she doesn't find out who it is right away because he's still wearing his mask. He's wearing a Harlequin mask is what it was called, right? But it doesn't take long before she puts the pieces together, and this amazing relationship begins to bloom between the two of them. And I love him. I love how he is with her and how he assuages her fears. And I mean, he is a bit like stern brunch daddy for her, but also, just accepts her for who she is in a time when a lot of people want to judge her, expect her to act a certain way. Winter is just totally obsessed with his lady, and we love to see it for sure. Okay. I know some of you who know me, you know the ones that you're waiting for, and we're getting to them. So next up, I'll share the one that I do personally think is my favorite historical, because again, any of these 10 on given days could be my favorite, but the one that for the last 5 years I've said is my favorite, and I do agree with that, is The Madness of Lord Ian McKenzie. Ian McKenzie stands alone as my favorite historical romance hero ever. No one can touch him. He is perfection. And this book, this romance between Ian and Beth lives rent-free all the time, all day. You ask me to prevaricate to you about Ian and Beth's relationship, and I can bring myself to tears in 3 minutes flat. There are a few key scenes. I can replay them in my rent-free brain, and I could cry for you, okay? Because this romance is just beautiful. So Ian is what we would say he's probably on the spectrum, but this taking place in Victorian times, He was considered mad, and he was put into an asylum at one time. He barely made it out alive. His older brother, Hart, once he had a bit more control in the family, made sure to get his brother out of that place. He's actually his brother's guardian. So technically, Ian could lose his rights if his brother ever enacted that. He doesn't. Hart doesn't do that. But I'm just trying to tell you the precarious situation that Ian might be in. Now, that doesn't mean he goes around living a dour lifestyle. He has his proclivities and his wants and needs that he sees to. One of his main ones being that he loves Ming bowls. He sees them as perfect artistic creations, and he is obsessed with them. And one man that he has done business with, though, ends up wanting to, I think, trade with him or like sell him a piece or whatever. And he finds out that this guy is actually engaged to a widow named Beth Ackerley. And the thing is, Ian knows some stuff about this guy. And being Ian, who, whether he will fully say it or not, he does like to look out for people. Okay, that's something you'll discover about him. He doesn't seem like he does, but the man does care, even about strangers, because he knows some things about this man. So he asks his servant to look into who the woman is that the guy's engaged to. And basically his idea is like, if he meets this woman and he gets a good vibe, he will let her know what her future husband is up to. Now again, Beth is already a widow. She actually was married to a parson who she loved very much. And they had a great relationship. He was very supportive and he was, loving. They had a good romantic relationship, but he's died. And after he died, she became a companion to a wealthy woman. And when that woman died, she left Beth some money. So she's a wealthy widow. She doesn't have to get married again, but she does desire companionship. And again, so she's engaged to this guy. And when Beth goes to the opera to meet this woman, he is, pardon my terms, but he is struck dumb. And Beth doesn't know who Ian is, but he's this quiet, stoic, large Scottish man who comes in, sits beside her, can't look her in the eye, but he takes her hand and he just can't stop touching her, even in that simple way. And he's obsessed with her immediately. And Beth is very taken with him too. She's very just stunned by his otherness in ways, but also his just peaceful calm. And so he leaves a note in her hand and he leaves. And this note explains basically that the man she's engaged to is a cheater who likes to have women do things to him. Women of the oldest profession, shall we say. And so Beth gets out of that situation, and then she decides, you know what, I just don't need to marry again. What was I thinking? But now Ian wants her, and he wants her very, very much. And he wants her for a sexual relationship. He fully admits that because he doesn't believe that he can love anyone. He's always been told that his otherness prevents him from loving. But Beth, because she doesn't want to be married now, is like, well, we can have a sexual relationship. That'd be fine. And now he's like, no, I need more than that. I must possess this woman fully. And so begins his very different type of courtship of her. But Ian McKenzie will not be thwarted, and he will find a way to make Beth his own, and it will be the greatest love story you've ever read, okay? I'll just tell you that. That's all I'm going to... I adore Beth and Ian. And Ian is one of the most faithful, kind, and generous heroes that I've read in romance ever. He's in my top 3 romance heroes of all time, and that is my favorite historical of all time. It is my holy grail. If I could only read one historical for the rest of my days, it would be that one. So, if you haven't read it yet, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to. Okay, I'll have it linked below as well as all of these. All right, let's keep going. Let's do another Lord here. This one is another one I think shows up a lot of places. We have Lord of Scoundrels. Yes, my copy's a bit crackly here, but at least I have one with a step back. For a long time I had one without a step back. And this one, we'll talk quickly about this one. because again, most people know of it, but this is about Jessica Trent. She's a determined woman, and she's trying to drag her brother off of the road to ruin. And so to save him, she comes up against Sebastian Ballister, aka Dane, the Marquis of Dane, who is this troublemaker. He's big and bad and dangerous, and he's very beautiful, but he's seen as like a devil. And he kind of is the one who's like egging her brother on and bringing him along on their trips and gambling weekends. And the thing is, Dane has basically unlimited funds to do that, but Jessica's brother does not. And so Jessica is trying to drag her brother out of trouble, and Dane is just like, no, like, in fact, I'm going to stir the shit even more because you're trying to tell me what to do. And Jessica and Dane they'll go 9 rounds, and it will be Jessica who's standing at the end. I will just say that. This woman is a badass, and she has the aim with a gun, like the best of them. Let's just say that. And she will not be talked down to or mocked. And yes, Dane does those things to her. But inside of him is this insecurity and this need for someone to call him on his shit. And I think Jessica does a great job of that. Now, I will say, this relationship, it's a bit more toxic than any of the ones I've shared before. Maybe, again, the magic is that one's pretty toxic too. Like, generally, historical romances aren't ones I say there's toxic relationships in, but they still exist. They do. And I would say that these two, many people have problems with it, but I love Dane's journey. He goes from an absolute, like, scoundrel, as the name suggests, to a very devoted husband, and him and Jessica are just great together. We love it. All right, then we have When the Earl Met His Match by Stacey Reed. It was very difficult to choose which Stacey Reed I would share. First, before I go more, I send prayers and blessings to Stacey. I know that her health as well as her family has been having some real struggles lately. And not only do I want her better because selfishly I want more books from her. She is a master of historical romance, but also she is one of the kindest women that I know, and I had the blessing of actually interviewing her one time. She came on, she was in a Snuggie while we did our interview. It was wonderful. She has just this slight Jamaican accent left, because she is Jamaican, but she is also lived in other places, and listening to her speak is magical. So if I remember to, I will link my interview with her, and she has a beautiful love story too. She's dedicates every one of her books to her husband. Let me see, his name is Deshaun. And she always, I annotated this one, she always dedicates her books to her hubby. And their romance is very cute. So, this book, this is a not his baby. This is a woman on the run, woman in distress. And this is another hero with a disability. This one is mutism or speechlessness. Our hero cannot speak. He uses sign language, which is great in here. And his father is urging him to get married. That's why this one is the Earl and not a Duke. An Earl can have a father, but a Duke generally doesn't. Just putting that out there, if you know how things work in the aristocracy there. But Lady Phoebe got married with who she thought was her sweetheart, and got pregnant. Did I say married? I meant to say she got pregnant by who she thought was her sweetheart, only for him to be willing to be bought off by her parents. And her parents are trying to push her to go to a home for women and have her baby and never see her baby again. And her big brother, who should have stepped in to help her, he happens to be a bit busy with his own drama. This is actually the 4th book in a series. So her older brother is pretty awesome, but he doesn't step in until a bit too late into the story. But anyway, Phoebe actually starts writing letters with this man through the newspaper, who he's looking for a wife, but the way he's asking for one, she thinks is ridiculous. So she's kind of like calling him out. And they have this flirtation with one another. And she ends up, when she has nowhere else to go, she decides she will go and marry this guy. who she does not know is an Earl, and that is an heir to a kingdom, but she's desperate, and so she shows up at his door only to discover that she would be basically cuckolding this guy or something like that, you know, or trying to pass off her child. But instead, they're both very honest about it. He doesn't want to ever love anyone because his father has encouraged him that loving a woman only leads to pain. Not that his dad is a bad guy. We like his dad a lot. We do. He's just been burned before because all of his children aren't really his, is the thing. And so that, though, leads to the fact that Hugh, when he finds out she's pregnant, he's honestly even more interested in marrying her because now he doesn't have to have sex with her to have a child. I know, sounds strange. Because then he doesn't have to risk falling in love with his wife. Because he's like, look, I married this woman. Boom, there's a baby coming soon. This baby will be my heir. I will take care of her and protect her, and I'll never have to risk my heart. But that's not going to go very well for him at all. It's beautiful, y'all. It's beautiful the way he is with that baby when they arrive. I, of course, have to mention, the Queen. Okay, we have Queen Bev. And yes, this is the same book. I finally was gifted this gorgeous copy. Yes, it is in rough shape. It is in rough shape. But I do not care because I have a first edition of Indigo, which came out in 1996 and is gorgeous, okay? But then this is the indie cover because eventually she had to republish it this way. But this is about Hester Wyatt, who escaped slavery, and now she helps run the Underground Railroad. And when a man called Black Daniel, who's a member of that, is injured and needs a place to stay, his name is actually Galen, or Galen, I think we say it, and he stays in her cellar. And the banter that these two have is just delightful, and the way that he makes her fall for him is delightful. But they live in a very dangerous time, as you can imagine, with people suspicious of them, with the authorities trying to stop them from their mission that they have. But their romance is so beautiful, and the way that Galen will just not let Galen. Why do I want to say Galen? It doesn't want to say that. The way that Galen will just not let Hester go, I just think is so beautiful. And their relationship is just, it's so swoon-worthy. This is a book that I was very intimidated by and nervous to read for a long time. Just because, I don't know, I was afraid to read a historical romance with a Black couple for fear that it would be scary or hurtful. And Beverly Jenkins, of course, is a brilliant historian in how she writes her stories, and she managed to still make you feel the weight of the time while still giving you an HEA that you fully believe and makes you feel so hopeful in so many ways. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm reading one of her books for book club right now, and the same thing is happening in there. She just writes her characters with so much hope. And again, to put this pin on it, again, I think historical romance will have another wave again. I don't think we're done by any means. But what we will lose in the meantime is Beverly Jenkins isn't writing historical romance right now. She's writing suspense novels. We are missing out on more stories like this while we wait for historical romance to come again. And when it comes around again, will she still write for us? Who knows? So that's something that really hurts me. But okay, we just have 3 left. And these are, it just so worked out, the 3 indie ones. So let's talk about those. This is one that I always have to share. I will share this cover, but you guys know I talk about it many times. I don't approve of AI being used in book covers or being used to take the place of human artists. This cover that I have, my friend made for me because the original cover of this book is hideous. The author has never redone them, and I don't understand. I beg of her to do, because this story is so wonderful. And so for my birthday a few years ago, though, one of my friends recovered the book for me and made it have like a clinch cover on it. But I'm just letting you know, I'm fully aware of it. And my opinions have changed in years, but I'm still so thankful my friend made this for me because I adore this book, and having it have this style is just, I wish the author would do it, and I would buy it. I would buy a million. So anyway, enough of that. But it's Eyes of Silver, Eyes of Gold. This is the pretty cover she made for me. Put the horsey on the back. Gave it a step back for me. This is the original cover. Okay. So, yeah. You can see why I love this, but yeah, this is a one-of-a-kind copy. It will not be sold. No one will profit off of it. But I'm very grateful to my friend, Mel, who did this for me, because I treasure this book anyway. And I love this. But anywho, enough of that. I'm just giving you my disclaimer on it because I'm, you know, because my opinions have changed and I feel like we need to acknowledge when they do. But I'm not going to throw out this beautiful book that you made me either. So this is a Western. It takes place in 1885 in Colorado. And we have Ann Wells, who is on the run basically from a marriage her father's trying to force her into. She's 28 and she's a spinster. And her father's trying to marry her off to this wealthy, abusive asshole. And when she is on the way out of town, she ends up having to hunker down in Cord Bennett's barn. Now, she knew Cord from when they were both in school. He is a half Native American man, and so he's considered just horrible things. Like, there are horrible racist things said to him in this book. Let's just lay that flat out. Him and one of his siblings came from a relationship where his father, the first wife had died, and the father married a Native American woman who he loved. He married her and had 2 kids with him. And so they were then treated horribly because of that. The sister, I think it's his younger sister, was able to white pass. And so she's really leaned into her Caucasian side and has been able to mostly, like, not live with the same stigma that Cord did. But anyway, it is a big part of the story. It absolutely is. And it makes it very painful when we see it played out. But Anne, they weren't besties or anything in school, but she always liked him and his sister, and he'd stood up for her before when she needed it. And he finds her in his barn, and instead of letting her continue on her way and possibly get in danger, he said, I'm going to drive you to the stagecoach station tomorrow, so let's bunker down tonight. But before things can get any further, her father and a posse of lunatics show up, and not to do bird for it, but they basically beat the snot out of Cord, almost kill him, do a mock marriage, marrying Anne to Cord. It makes no sense, okay? But it's a part of the story to happen where they did this as a punishment to her, and then they also beat her up and they leave, assuming that they killed Cord. And they'll come back tomorrow, having made her spend the night with her dead husband or something, her new husband. Again, her father's a psycho. That's not what makes this book so good, okay? This book starts out incredibly dark, all right? We start there. That's what happened. But since this is a romance, we know Cord did not die, but he is in a mighty big hurt. And Anne is now left alone, basically, on his farm. He is a horse trainer. And so he has horses at his place. He has his farm. She is injured. He is almost dead. She's barely able to drag him into the house. She drags his mattress off the bed, pulls him on it, and she begins to care for him because he's all she has. And when people start to come around to not only her father coming back, she meets them with a gun at the door and says, get the F out of here. You have set up this situation. Now go away. And slowly, painstakingly, Cord comes back to life. And basically, they start with the deal that now it is getting close to winter. She will stay with him through the winter, I think is the plan of it. And then maybe she'll try to make a go of it then. But very soon, they're going to start to fall for each other, and, you know, that's going to become impossible for them to go. But this is a story that truly breaks my heart, but also watching these two realize that they love each other and that they should and are deserving of love is a beautiful journey to see. And I think Ellen O'Connell does an amazing job. And I know some of my viewers, they desperately want me to read more books by Ellen O'Connell. She does have a few. But for sure, you need to read Eyes of Silver, Eyes of Gold. And if you read it on your Kindle, you don't ever have to look at that cover if you don't want to see it, the original. But I only ever read this book. This was way back, you guys. I read this book when I first opened up my book recommendation form, which is always in my description. I know there are hundreds of books in it, so I know it can feel defeating to put a book in there. But I do pick books from it when I'm looking for prompts for sometimes readathons, when I just can't decide what to read, even when I have a TBR a mile long. There's room to put the book request of the tropes of the book and why you think I'll like it. And I read Eyes of Silver, Eyes of Gold from a game that I played where I rolled the dice and I picked a random number. And I'm so thankful I did, because it is a favorite historical to this day. And it's a very powerful book. I've read that one 4 or 5 times and it hits hard every time. Okay, 2 left here. We have The Taming of the Highlander by Lisa Braden. I'll mention this one quickly. This one is a bit of a Beauty and the Beast retelling. We have the McPherson brothers. So we have Broderick McPherson, and he was very greatly injured. He was attacked by a villain, and I believe he spent some time in prison. And then there is there's Kate Huxley, who is there to visit her brother, which her brother married Broderick's sister, actually, in the first book, I believe. And she ends up seeing Broderick do something. And she isn't going to tattle on him. But if someone tried to force her to testify, he could end up going back to prison. And he and his family don't think he will survive. Yes, he's wearing an eye patch who's injured. And so they come up with a brilliant idea for her to be married off to him, because then she can't be forced to testify against him. Whoopee-ki-yay, that'll solve all of our problems. And Kate agrees to do this. She thinks he's very dashing and dangerous looking and everything. And he's just like, I'm going to leave this poor virginal chick alone. She's married to me, but I don't have to torture her, make her life more difficult. And Kate is like, please, sir, come ravish me, please. Yeah, something like that. But we love this. The Midnight in Scotland series by Lisa Braden is really quite delightful. I highly recommend. Now, the last book I want to share that is a holy grail of historical romances for me is Forever Your Rogue by Erin Langston. Wow, this book, you guys. This book is so good. Erin Langston only has 2 full-size books and 2 novellas out. And damn, I hope she's really working on one for us, because she's brilliant, okay? I love her stories. This one is a single mom named Cora, and she has 2 kids, and she's a widow. That would be the single mom part. And her her dead husband left her, his family as like the co-guardians to her children. And they are ones who are controlling her son's money, and they could take her kids away from her if they don't think that she's doing a proper job. And her brother, who's a lawyer, is desperately trying to help her get full custody, but she's not going to be able to do that on her own, like unless the family would sign them over type of thing, which they don't want to do because, again, they want control of the money, right? And she is in desperate need of some help, and so she calls on a man who owes her a favor, who his name is Nate Travers, and he is, of course, a rogue, and he really doesn't want to help out this single mom. He wants nothing to do with it, but he does still have a bit of honor left, and that honor compels him to honor her request and basically pretend to be her fiance so that he can seem like a stable man to be in the kid's life. Why she would want to pick Nate, who, again, is a bit of a troublemaker, well, she's using what she got. And what Nate is not prepared for is not only the beautiful, uptight Cora, who he wants to help loosen up a little bit, but her children, who just knock him off his feet. Absolutely. And by the end of this, there's no hope for him to ever walk away because he is so fully entrenched in this family. And it's freaking beautiful, okay? It's beautiful. We love to see it. Nate and Cora have a romance that is spectacular, and though it isn't totally quiet, because there is a lot of fun happening here, and there's really high stakes. There's very high stakes. But how he falls and how he admires what type of mom she is. And it's really about like the aspects of her that he loves that I find to be so beautiful. So, yeah. You gotta read it. You gotta read it. All right, so there you go. Those are 10 historical romances that are holy grails to me, that I recommend any and every time that someone asks for historical romance recommendations. I highly recommend them for you. I would love for you to tell me, as I said, how many out of 10 you agree with me on, and some of yours. Let me know. And again, I know I missed some. I know. I immediately, upon making this list, can think of 10 more. But I feel like this is a good round out of like what my historical romance taste is. And yeah, I just love it. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you give this a thumbs up. Make sure you check out the links below if you want to purchase any of these. It helps out the channel and it helps out the authors, particularly the indie authors for sure. And it also shows that you're still interested in historical romance. Keep those books coming for us. All right. Thank you so much for watching, friends, and I'll see you next time.